Hey everybody, I wanted to show off some new stuff that I have been learning in Azure related to creating websites that are pretty easy to get up and running. I don't know if you're like me at all, but I have worked in IT operations a long time and always wanted to make sites that I can host some of my internal IT documentation to or for like my own internal teams, or just build out some cool sites that I can host content that is out there. And so I have been playing around with the Docusarus document library hosted in a Azure static website. And I want to show you how easy it is to create your own site using Docusarus and Azure static websites. And then I want to show you how we can control authentication to it using both Azure Active Directory and then Azure B2C, so business to customer sites. So that's what I'm going to show you today. And I hope you enjoy this, and I hope this helps someone else who is in a similar spot of always wanting to host their own site for your own team. So let's show you the end result of what we are building here. This is a Docusarus website. I am currently hosting this live in my Azure environment, and you can see it does a really good job of hosting this content and making all of this available to my internal team. I can come in and update this content super quick and make all of these things available to whoever I want it to be. In my case, my employees, they can access it via my apps portal. So I have this integrated into my Azure Active Directory environment. And so if my employees that are going to be doing stuff for me want to launch it, apparently it failed, they can launch into here and access the site directly from it. So mileage may vary on how perfect it is. Live demos, never can go right. But they can continue accessing this as they need it to. For employees that are external, or maybe it's just an external constituent that you want to give access to, we can come in and give them access to it via Azure B2C. So I have made this app available in two ways, or authentication available in two ways. I have this for external customers that wanted to sign up for an account, as well as internal employees so that they can access this. And this gives you a lot of flexibility when you go to create content for whatever purpose that you need. So some use cases that I was thinking through is, of course, I do a lot of Defender stuff, but I really was thinking about this for like an internal SOC process. Or if I'm doing stuff with Purview and doing sensitivity labels, well, I could use this site to host all of our organization's sensitive document handling sites in a cool location that feels a little bit more formal than maybe just a SharePoint site or something along that lines. And it gives end users kind of that permanent feel to it. So I thought this was kind of cool. And so I want to show you how you can get started with it. Really, at the end of the day, it is, like I said, a Docusarus library. What's under the hood is this programming system, or I guess repo that has been pre-made to handle all of this creation of it. So I'll walk you through how to create this. Then finally, I'll show you how to host it in Azure. And then the storage location for it, what's happening under the hood. I'll also show you how to create your own GitHub repo with all of this documents so that you can manage this, host it in GitHub, do some pipelines so it automatically updates your website. And then from there, you can just continuously update this document or site and use it for whatever purpose that you can come up with. So that being said, that's enough intro. So let's get into creating the site. So where do we get started with this? Well, for me, I am using Visual Studio Code to do all of the programming and updating of this. I am just following along with the Docusarus library and their directions for it. I've installed some of the prerequisites already. I have Node.js installed. I obviously have Visual Studio Code. I also have the GitHub extension installed on my environment, as well as the Azure site extension installed. And you'll need all of that to create and host and manage this site. And so just go ahead and follow the quick directions that they have in there on the Docusarus site. And you can basically install Node.js and get up and running. Once you have all of those things installed, well, what we need to do is go to Visual Studio Code and start creating our site. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. And so we'll set up this in a Docusarus library. And I'm just going to create a new folder for it. And we'll call this YouTube site. And we're going to select that folder as our location. Yes, we trust the author. It is us. Next, I'm going to go ahead and open up Terminal, and we're going to copy and paste from the Docusarus website this code that's going to scaffold our project for us. So I like to change this a little bit to just be www because that just makes sense for me. It's my website that's hosting. You can keep that. It really doesn't matter. But we're going to launch this, and it's going to go ahead and go to the Docusarus site and create a classic site for it. This process takes a little bit to get up and running. So I'm going to pause the video and come back once it's done, and I'll show you those next steps. All right, so our code or our script finished running, and it's gone and downloaded everything that we need to run this site locally. One great part about having all that Node.js component installed is that we can host this site locally on our workstation and just run it. And they have some helpful directions here that can help you do it. And all we're going to do is we're going to change directory to the site that we just created. And then we're going to launch the site. This will turn on in Node.js the full site and launch it so you can host it. And we'll come back again right after it starts. All right, it launched in my local terminal, and it popped up on my other screen, my super cool site, right? And I am ready to start coding and editing this site. And so here you can see the quick walkthrough of it. Docusarus does a really good job explaining, well, the basics of using this site. And I'm not going to really go into detail about how to do it because, well, they documented it way better than I have. But the quick thing is like, you know, if I wanted to make some live changes to this site, I can just come into this folders and start putting in, you know, stuff. So if I wanted to do a folder on Defender for Endpoint, and then, you know, put directions on getting started with antivirus, I can really quickly do that. And then, you know, put in some code. So I'm now live editing this site, and we'll just hit save and put it in here. We'll just call this antivirus. And we'll save that real quick. And as you save it, you'll notice this is constantly live updating that, well, maybe not, should be live updating that we created this site. I put a capital there. That's not going to work. And there you go. And you can see it took that time by putting the right case to it. And the MDE antivirus page is live on my local site. And so we can quickly grab all of this content, put it in. You can use ChatGPT to fill out and put in all the boilerplate that you want in the world, and really quickly have a site that's customized with your exact content that you need so that you can have your stuff available to maybe external parties or internal. So at this point, this is a local hosting. So if we want to store it or make it available to external people on the internet, we now need to host it. And for me, the easiest way to host this is on a Azure static web page. Azure static web pages are new to me, but I think are a super cool technology. The Microsoft team that's managing it, they seem to be really awesome. They have a lot of great content that they are hosting on this dev blog, and it just walks through all of these different capabilities that you can use it for. And as someone that does IT operations for forever, being able to come in here and follow just these quick directions has really been awesome for me on learning how to use this site, and really makes me excited about the technology. So that's what we need to do. We need to now get this hosted in an Azure Static website. And so let's go ahead and do that. So again, to make that happen, I am going to use GitHub, and we're going to publish this to a local or a GitHub that is just connected to my environment. I'm going to come in here. We're going to upload the www site, and we're going to push that into our GitHub location. You'll see, here we go. Right. And so we can just come into our GitHub repositories, and we can start, coding that content up. And so it will upload all of our site. Make sure you do a private site unless you're looking to expose it publicly to, have other people look at all of the code and stuff like that. But we're essentially going to be ready to go. Once it's, synced to that, we would then come into Azure, sign into your Azure environment, and we can now publish this out to the internet. So it might take a hot second for it to load my Azure environment because I haven't launched it in a little bit here on Visual Studio Code. Once it does, we can come in and right click and hit create static web app. Because the code is already stored in GitHub, we did that step first so that we don't have to do a lot of other stuff of putting in all of the code repo stuff. So publish first to your GitHub, then come in and create the Azure Static website. What name do we want to do it? Use YouTube Static website. We're going to go to West US because that's closest to me. We're going to use React for this. And then we're going to put in the location of the app. So in our case, that www root site of this, and build it out. So that's going to be the site that we use. So that will go in and start publishing it to Azure. It's not really doing anything here with your local machine once it gets created. What's actually happening on the back end is it's setting up some actions in our GitHub repo, and these actions are going to be what is responsible for pushing and pulling all our code, or really just pushing our code to our hosting service. So once this pipeline or this action runs, we should see our Azure Static website start showing up in here. And it is starting to show up. And so we can see here, it gave us a URL that we can use. And this URL should be just about ready to go for us to host. So let's launch that right now. And you can see the site is live, right? And so it's just waiting for our content. And that won't happen until this content gets pushed out and this pipeline has completed. Excuse me. So once this is completed, we should be good to go. Couple cool things that you can see in here that we can take advantage of. All of this configuration is managed either via code or some of these configuration settings. Right now, I'm doing a free hosting of this solution, and they have a standard hosting plan that gives you some really cool features. And you might want to take advantage of. But some simple stuff that you could do is just a password protected site, right? We can come in and just, hey, I just want to put a standard password on it, upgrade to premium, and you're good to go. And we'll walk through all of this as we go. We can, of course, program in custom domains for hosting all of this content. And once you kind of get your stuff up in here, you might want to come in and say, yeah, let's add this item in on, and we'll program in this. I want XYZ site, or I want to use this URL for this hosting site. And you can do that, program it in, and it's really easy. They even handled the SSL certificates for it because I registered that domain. And so that's fantastic. So we're going to give this a couple minutes to update. And once it's done, actually it just finished. We'll see if it goes and it's live. And so there you go. So that didn't take long at all, just me stalling a little bit and sneezing. And our site is now hosted on the web. And so anybody that comes in here can access this content and see exactly what's going on with it. And so that altogether, 10 minutes to get your own website hosted in Azure is pretty powerful, being able to put your content on the web and customize it and make it available. Now, obviously, you might want to do a lot more customizations to this site. And you saw in my previous site, I did a lot more customizations to make it my own and put this content in here. But it's really not that hard. A couple quick Google searches and you'll discover how to replace the logo, how to get rid of the blog, how to redirect that home site. It's not impossible to figure out. It's just a couple of steps that you need to do it. And so that's awesome, right? But for me, I want this site protected or access to it controlled by Azure Active Directory. So let's go ahead and switch gears and we'll show you how to do that. All right, so let's set this site up so that authentication is managed by us. And to do that, we're going to edit the routing components of this site. And the Azure Static Web App makes it super easy to do. We're just on this web page and we're going to come down to the routing section and scroll down here, and they have basically this code pre-written for you here. Where is it? This one, restrict access to the entire application. And that's what we're going to do here. So essentially, we're going to add in some code to our site that says, as you get into any routes of the site, it's only available to authenticated users. When you fail to sign in or can't access it, you're going to be redirected to this URL that is going to control authentication. And so let's go ahead and program that in. Actually, forgot one step. We got to create the file that's going to host all this. And here you can see that's just staticwebapp.json. So we're going to go ahead and put that into our site. So let's go back into our code. And here in the root site, the www, we're going to add in our static web app config.json. Then back to our code for the site, we're going to copy what's pre-made here from Microsoft. And this is really quick and really simple to get up and running. Think of it as, like doing firewall routes. Essentially, you can basically say, hey, all of these things authenticated. You can come in and add multiple routes. So if there was only one page on the site or one set of resources you wanted to force authentication against, you can do that and you can program that in with this config file and set it up. A couple other really cool things you can do here is that this is Azure Active Directory, AAD, but Azure Static Sites also have some other options pre-built into it. And so if we come down here, we can see the authentication providers that are pre-baked. Excuse me. And so we can see we can force people to log in with Twitter, and we can also force people to log in with GitHub. So GitHub has its own authentication provider that we can do. And that is it. That will control access to our site. So if I go ahead and push this control out, we're going to be good to go. And we'll commit and sync that. And you have to, again, wait a while for our GitHub actions to trigger, and it will start updating that site once that code is basically pushed in. So I'm going to pause the video here to let this publish, and then I'll come back and show you the results. All right, our site finished updating, and so let's go ahead and launch it. And then we can see the results of our Docusarus site. I actually forgot the URL that I was using before, so let's go ahead and copy that and let's launch that in incognito just so we don't have any other content going in here. And just like that, we're asked to authenticate to access it. So I put in the Azure Active Directory sign-in option, and let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to sign in with my standard user account. And of course, we got to use our password. And number match MFA. You should always have MFA on all of your accounts. And I love the number match option. it's way better for your end users. And essentially we're signed in, right? And this is the pre-made consent. Once the end user accesses our environment, what we will be able to see, the app will have access to my email address and my username. I'm going to go ahead and grant that consent and get access to it. Now, that is pretty cool right there, but one of the downsides that you'll notice from adding that is that, well, anybody's Azure Active Directory can sign in. We have no control. All we're saying is you simply have to sign in with an auth provider, either GitHub, Azure Active Directory, or Twitter. I think the Twitter is the last one. Yeah, Twitter. That you can do. Anybody can sign in with any of those three things and get access to your site. And that's not quite what I want to do. So we're going to come down here to the custom auth providers. And this is where you can now set this up to be managed by you and control access using your own auth provider. And they have several pre-made ones that give you options, as well as they support OpenID Connect. So if you wanted to do your own custom one, which I will do at the end with Azure B2C, you can. But for us, for right now, we're going to just use the Azure Active Directory one. And you can see here they have two different versions. We're going to use version number 2 to make that all work for us. So I'm going to go ahead and update our code with this information. So let's come in here, add a comma down below, and paste in that code. And you can see here, it wants me to fill out a couple of things. We need a tenant ID, we need a client ID, and we need a client secret. So let's go ahead and program those into our site, and we'll get them directly from our Azure environment. So back here, and we will open up Azure Active Directory. So we want to start here in app registrations. So just need it to load, and we'll be able to create that. There we go. And let's create our app. We'll call this YouTube test site. I'm going to make this a single app, and that will be for my tenant here. We're going to select this redirect URL as the URL for our site. In this case, we're going to copy that, program that in. And there is a little bit of other detail we need. So we're going to come back in here into the auth providers and see what it wants us to be. The auth callback, login. There we go. So this is the login auth provider that we want to put in here. So we'll come in, .NET, and then we'll call this Azure Active Directory, AAD. And we'll register that app. I think I did this right. We'll see at the end if I got this 100% correct. But we are getting closer. So first thing we need to grab is our directory tenant ID. And we're going to grab that and put it back into our code. So here is this component that we're going to do. And we'll save that. And we're essentially done at this point. We don't need to update this again to this. We essentially just program this in to go here. And we're going to push that commit to this. So you might be like me and trying to edit these and program in the client ID and client secrets, but the Azure Static Website actually doesn't want you to fill all this information in. It wants you to do it on not have these client secrets and client ID stored in your code. So they actually don't even let you program that in. So we need to go back to our site and we need to add that in as our configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And once it opens up, we should be good to go. I probably shouldn't have committed that change while we did this, but that's all right. There we go. And we're going to just copy and paste this from this. So client ID, go back to our registration, and you can see here client ID, our application ID. We're going to copy and paste that in and hit OK. And then now we need to get our client secret. So we're going to program in that exactly client secret from our, config file, and then go back here. And now we need to create that secret. So back to client certificates, and we're going to set this up here. I'm going to set it to 2 years, add it, and then we're going to copy this secret value, come back to our site, and again, save it just like that. And don't forget to hit the save button at the top once you fill out the information. You do have to do that. Again, I know from testing this a bunch, I forgot to hit the save several times and recoded everything only to find out I never hit save. So don't make that mistake. Save your button, save your stuff. All right, so now back to our site, and now we need to, or our GitHub, and we need to wait for our site to update with the new code we just programmed in. So I'll pause this and come back. All right, so the update finished, and let's go ahead and try signing in. So we'll launch again a new incognito browser and launch our site again. All right, and we'll go ahead and sign in again. Here we go. And I think we are good. However, one thing to keep in mind, that was almost too similar to our other experience with signing in. And we should test this with another URL. And one of the things you'll find is if you do this with another, set of login credentials, you're actually not right now working, right? One of these things, one of the downsides of this site is because the built-in Azure Active Directory and the AAD Connect options of GitHub use the same auth provider, well, it's really easy to think, oh, I have completed this successfully. And in fact, you may not have. What you will find if you do lots of testing is that these custom auth providers are behind the paywall of the standard app. It only is supported. It's not supported in the free app. So we need to come in here and set up this into a standard application and upgrade it so that it works with Azure Active Directory in our custom auth provider. So I'm going to do that now and switch it over. And then we're going to try again because I forgot to do that part. And there we go. So now it's a little different experience. It knows I'm supposed to be signing into the Doug S. Baker tenant instead of just signing into any Active Directory tenant. So let's go ahead and do that. All the MFAs. Oh, twice. What did I do there? I must have done something wrong. So we're in a authentication loop. So it means I must have done something incorrect when I set up that app. So let's go ahead and back out of this, and I'm going to go figure out what I did wrong. I think it must be something wrong with my app registration. And I think what I did incorrectly here is I originally put in AAD and not add in the callback URLs. So I'm going to pause this. I'm going to check a couple things, and I'll come back and tell you exactly where I made my mistake. All right, I think I figured out where I made a mistake. A couple things. I originally told you .auth login AAD, and what I needed to do was add this /callback because when you're trying to just remember stuff, you off the top of your head you don't look at it correctly, and I forgot to add that component in. The other thing I don't think is well documented here that I think is required is we needed to check this blocks for implicit grant and hybrid flows, ID tokens. I think it needs that. So I went and saved that and gave it a second to sync. And so let's try it again. Okay, still going to the correct tenant. I don't know why I keep putting my phone away, as if I'm not going to be authenticating a ton today. I should probably switch to a 502 security key. Someone from Microsoft is probably shaking their head and saying, why didn't you do that? Or use passwordless. And I really should. And there we go. All right. So that worked with that. So one key component that was definitely missed is that you need to put that callback, and then you need to check that box for that ID tokens. And then now we are set up that we can log in with another set of, with our credentials, access our site, and we're good to go. So that's pretty cool, pretty easy options. If you wanted to push this to, the My App sites, you can certainly do that. You can make this available to, users. And because it's connected to Azure Active Directory now, we can basically use a group to manage this. And we can say, assignment must be required to access this, instead of, making it available to anybody in an organization. We can lock it down to only a specific group can access this site, and really control it really well that way. So I hope this video helped someone else out there that wants to take advantage of it. If you found this helpful, let me know. I was thinking about showing it how to connect it to Azure B2C. If you find you're interested in that, let me know. I'll make a video on how to connect this to Azure B2C. And good luck out there and stay safe.